Today we're driving the 2020 Hyundai Venue SEL. This is Hyundai's new entry-level crossover to replace the Accent. It's kind of a short, squat, compactly designed, fuel-efficient, and cost-effective crossover. It's powered by a 1.6-liter four-cylinder that makes 121 horsepower. That's mated to a CVT. It gets about 30 miles to the gallon in the city, 34 on the highway, so it should be pretty cheap to run and cheap to purchase. Let's walk you around this Venue and then we'll take it for a drive, see how it does on the road. Hyundai is touting this as a city vehicle, and I will say around town it is pretty pleasant to live with. I think in the class, this is probably one of the more attractively proportioned vehicles. The Honda HR-V, the Toyota CHR, especially some of the competition from the US or from Fiat. This might be one of the top options against its competitors, in my opinion at least. It's packaged quite well. You have a good amount of space in the back here. Compact spare tire. Some neat features like this color-matched Venue logo in the back. And a strange thing about this car is, from a distance, it visually looks a lot bigger than it really is. But once you get up close to it, it's pretty small and pretty compact. I like the material of these cloth seats. Looks like these seats fold flat if you move the front seat forward. It's a little bit cramped back here, but there's definitely enough room. You get some slight indents in the front seat, and I can sit behind myself at 5'10" quite comfortably. I have plenty of headroom, a good 3 inches or so above my head. Getting in and out is really easy too, just because of the kind of taxi cab proportions of this thing. Some neat little styling elements, borrowed from the Hyundai Palisade. It's kind of got that similar grille, similar design language from the headlights. Overall, I think it's a pretty attractive thing. It's nothing here that's too controversial or weird looking. On the inside, we have pretty nice materials, keeping in line with what Hyundai's been doing. They use a really nice leather on the steering wheel and the shift knob, so your two most commonly used touch points seem to be pretty well appointed. We still have buttons and knobs, standard controls for everything. We have heated seats in this SEL, a couple drive modes, normal, sport, and snow. I will say normal feels more like an eco mode. Initial throttle tip-in is really light, and our sport mode just kind of amps that up a little bit. This is available in front-wheel drive only, and honestly, in a car this price range, with this amount of power, this level of ground clearance, you really just need good winter tires to get through snowy conditions, and all-wheel drive adds a lot of weight, cost, and complexity, and just isn't necessary at this type of a price point, in my opinion. Pretty standard reverse camera. Got a sunroof as well. For the price of this SEL, MSRP is around 19 grand. Price is tested about 23. This offers pretty good value for how well it drives. I have a reasonably tall driving position in here, but it kind of feels a little bit more like a hatchback as far as its character on the road. There are lots of places to put things on this interior, space for phones, drinks. There's even this little storage area here, though if you are actually going to be putting things there, you're going to want to lay down some type of rubberized mat so that what you put on there doesn't slide around. Manufacturers are really good about creating these storage areas, but not making them usable because they're so smooth and slippery. when you're just driving this venue around normally, the CVT works great. Hyundai's done a really good job with their CVTs the last few years. They're also chain-driven CVTs, so they act a little bit differently. When you're just driving them around normally, they're efficient. They put down a good amount of power. And for city use, this is perfectly adequate. You get onto the highway, you get onto higher speeds or passing on back roads, and you're definitely going to be wanting with 121 horsepower that this has. But if you're a decent enough driver, you can use the most of it. It's only when you get into it where you feel that CVT rubber band effect, but chances are most buyers aren't going to be hustling this thing around. They're just going to be driving it normally and efficiently. Like I said earlier, this feels very hatchback and car-like in here. Dynamically, it feels lightweight. There's an agility from the short wheelbase, and because this is kind of a lifted, raised hatchback crossover, the ride quality is quite good too. Has a good amount of mechanical grip, and steering is lightweight. The car feels agile, nimble. This would be a really great city car to live with. It's short, it's easy to park, and you can see a little bit higher above everything else. Reasonably quiet at highway speeds. It's a little bit windy this week, so we're getting a little bit more wind noise than we would normally. But overall, at speed, this seems to do pretty well. I think it's probably getting blown around a little bit more than some heavier cars would in the class, but ultimately, it's pretty nice to drive. As is typical with most Hyundais, all the ergonomics and everything in here, everything's super easy to find. You can get into this car and use it pretty much immediately and know where everything is, which I think is just great. I do like how the speedometer has this under 60 miles an hour, it'll show you this slightly different view where you get more detailed 5 mile an hour increments, and at city speeds you can kind of better tell how fast you're going with the analog gauge. I don't think there are any in the fleet, but the base model 6-speed manual venue would be really interesting to me, and maybe kind of fun, because that has a simplicity and a real appeal to me that I don't know. I'm very curious to see how that drives. Also, this would be a good shifter placement. Hyundai does a pretty good job with their manual transmissions, and it's pretty cool that they are offering that as a base model. If I were getting a venue, that's probably the one I'd swing for. But that said, this CVT is very good, given what it has to work with. Let's plug in Apple CarPlay. I love Apple CarPlay. It makes these new infotainment systems so much easier to live with and use. Just a great idea. We'll test out the sound system too.
Because he was kneeling like...
nice tuning knobs and buttons for everything. For the class, the price, the sound system is actually pretty nice. It sounds pretty good at low volume, medium volume. Pump it up a little bit. It doesn't fall apart. There are no glaring emissions here. This is all pretty impressive for the price point. I mean, if you want something that's all-wheel drive, you want something with more power, there are more expensive options out there. But if you just want a basic, good economy car that doesn't feel too cheaply built, that looks decent, it's economical, you get that slightly higher driving position, decent driving dynamics, this is a pretty decent option. And it's nice that these vehicles are able to achieve over 30 miles to the gallon in their combined fuel economy ratings. For so long, we were getting all these crossovers that were in the low 20s, and I think it's easier to live with something like this if it's a little bit cheaper to fill up at the pump. All right, guys. Well, I mean, that pretty much sums up the venue. It's pretty standard in here. I think overall it's a nice little car. Nice visors. The passenger side doesn't slide, as we learned from straight pipes. But they have good coverage, and I have great visibility here too. One nice thing I will say about a crossover is that you do get this slightly lower door frame, and you get better visibility out of it as opposed to some of the sedan and hatchback offerings because of the safety standards. So great visibility in this too, which helps. Even the key fob has a nice rubberized coating to it. Alright guys, well there you go. New Venue SEL. Funky looking little thing. This might be my top pick for the segment. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you later.